And it is Friday. We are fired up, and we are live, actually, here at Studio USA. I am Rick, and we have 100% more Wayne this week.
100%.
Yes, 100% more Wayne. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, good. Long time no see. It's been at least, 16 hours, maybe?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Back in the saddle. And now, who did you bring for our badass guest today?
So, in true Fired Up Friday theme, we pulled someone yesterday and pulled a miracle. So the man, the myth, the legend, Don HOBBS is with us. So most of you, Don, here's what's interesting about Don. Don has had an impact on your real estate career, whether you realize it or not, right? Like he's one of those guys. Like he has impacted how you market yourself, how you brand yourself, how you grow your real estate business, whether you know it or not. He's had an impact on you. So Don, and you can say it better than I can, but you were trained by the amazing Jim Rohn back in the day. You've done incredible things, and you're one of the things that you're most known for is being one of the very first to get realtors to brand and market themselves, not just the big brand, correct?
Not one of the first, Wayne. Not one of the first. The first.
You were the first.
We were the only guys that were talking about this stuff at the time. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that was crazy.
It was crazy. It was in the era of a different generation when people were joining Century 21 to wear the polyester gold coats.
Yes.
And red carpet to wear the red coats, right? So we just came along and said, it's about Wayne. It's not about them. And that was the beginning of all that stuff. So we had an impact. Pretty much everything you see in personal branding today was not happening before we got it.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, even the things we take for kind of like, oh, you're supposed to do this. That was so foreign back then. And agents were not building their own brand. They were building the brokerage. They were building whatever else, but they weren't building their own thing at all.
Nope.
And
they thought they were joining brands, in fact, to use their brands. And we were like, that's the thing you should be doing, because what you really need is drop them, and you don't have to leave them, just forget them, right? It's about you.
The really funny thing is some companies are still doing that.
Most.
That's a totally different podcast. There's some that still are doing it that way. And it's like, oh, we've been doing it different for a minute.
And then in your past, you had a little stint where you were doing some stuff with like an 8x8 and a thing.
Yes.
That was all our stuff.
Yeah, amazing.
8x8, 33 touch. That all came from us.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. And here's what's interesting. That the truth behind that hasn't changed. Right, like getting top of mind and staying top of mind hasn't changed in the last, because I think it's interesting. I'd love to ask you this question. We'll get into it in a second, but I'd love to ask you maybe on our next podcast too. Is like I love asking what is changing and what's not going to change. Sometimes we always focus on what's going to change. Sometimes ask what's not going to change.
Yep. Yeah, I think what's never going to change is the concept behind what you're wanting to do. How you do it will change. I mean, methodologies, technologies.
Sure.
I mean, the blur between tech and marketing, you can't separate them anymore, right?
Yeah.
There's just something in there. Where in the past, it was like there was marketing stuff, and we sent stuff, and we had print ads, and then the internet started to blur that. But then, of course, today we're just so many mediums. But what is also not changing is, it's not about the house. It's always about the decision they're going to make about what agent they choose.
Yep. The relationship and staying top of mind is never going to change.
That's never going to change.
Yep. So we could do 5 podcasts just on that.
We could.
You have ran the biggest coaching company for real estate agents in the world. You've done amazing things. So anyway, it's really great to have you on here, and I'd love to hear even more about your journey. You taught the one thing. I mean, we could have literally we could do 30 podcasts right here today straight, and this man would not stop with spouting wisdom. So I will try to let you drive the ship, but I'm having a hard time.
No. This is awesome, because the thing I love more than anything in the world is being right. And
it's a very honest podcast. Yeah.
And so
me too.
everything that he just said.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. Is it convergent evolution or divergent evolution, where
you know how I am with big words, small words,
where two things happen, in the same line, but completely separated. So everything that I have based, everything that led to where we're sitting right now, is on exactly what he said. And the perfect example is my nephew is an agent for Ebby, and whenever he joined, it's like, okay, congratulations, you've joined the biggest name equity brokerage in DFW. Now, the good news is you're a part of that family. The bad news is you're one of 2,200.
Right.
And it's like, then what?
Right.
And so everything I've done has been based on getting the agent out in front, and we leverage whatever brokerage they're a part of, and whatever the flavor is, whatever the brand is, or whatever. But clearly, I didn't make that up, and I didn't invent that because he was doing that ahead of time. But and I was looking at your bio and everything, and it's like Success Magazine and all the other things that I'm just like, I'm in school here, so I love this.
Yeah,
and like I said, though, it's already been worth the price of admission for me just to know that whenever I started this 7 or 8 years ago, I was just my North Star was that where it's not about 123 Main Street. It's not about this listing. It's about first off, you've already got this one. So let's assume that we're going to do all the right things and you're going to sell it.
Right.
So now how do we take that and make it to where you get the next one?
Right.
And it's that stacking of essentially, I always say like evidence builds confidence, So it's like if you've got like my number one agent that I've worked with and done all their content for the last 4.5 years, we probably have 110 listing videos.
Yeah.
So if she shows that to any potential client, the takeaway is, whoa, this lady sells a hell of a lot of houses.
Everything. She sells everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I'm old school. I was taught to sell at Guitar Center before they went public and before they became Walmart like 35 years ago. And it was used car sales. Always be qualifying. It's like nothing had a price tag. Everything was negotiated. Oh, you like the black? Hey, killer jacket, man. It was always just, we're just doing this. We're just doing this. And the assumptive close, if I send 110 videos, they're probably going to watch 3 maybe, or a piece of 3.
Yeah.
But the assumptive close is, this is what's going to look like when we market your house.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
And you're halfway there.
Yep.
Versus, I come in with my pre-printed, cookie cutter, corporate, approved, compliant flyers or whatever. It's like, okay, that's a thing.
Well, and I think the cool thing is it's evolved over the years, but what hasn't changed is people still want to feel cared about. They want to feel important. They want that relationship with somebody, right? So those things like how we do it changes, but like underneath all that, it hasn't really changed all that much.
Well, and like here we're goofing with AI and stuff and having to pick a topic or whatever and just messing around with it. But at the end of the day, my personal belief in the moment right now is the folks that develop that interaction and the human element will be the one thing that becomes rare.
Yeah.
When every ding dong has AI and they think like,
Totally.
I'm just going to sit back and let AI do my job. Oh, really?
They did a survey of people, the biggest mistakes that people were making when being interviewed. One of them was like 30% of people being interviewed, like kids being interviewed, struggled with eye contact. 20% brought a parent with them. 20% brought like mom with them to a job interview.
Yes.
Right? And like you look at, I was like, I read it like 3 times. I was like, no, really, they're taking mom. Like, I'm going to interview at, whatever, Baylor, and I'm bringing, like, what are we, crazy?
Yeah, it's like, well,
Like
of
you
course
said,
your
that
mom's
personal
going to.
interaction's huge.
Yeah, well, of course your mom's going to give you a good reference.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or let's hope
She's
so.
loved me for long. Yeah, let's hope so. All right, what does
let's
ChatGPT have?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, no, I didn't interrupt you.
Let me add one more piece to this before we leave the subject, and maybe we won't leave the subject. Who knows? But what I would say is that you mentioned that when we get 100 videos, and it's like, can we get the next one? It goes beyond that because it's not about getting the next deal. It's about building the brand that people say, oh, we've seen her for years. Mm-hmm. She does everything here. Who else would we call? Yep. She's top of mind. Yep. Literally, she's my realtor. I've never used her, but we always knew that when it was time, she was the one. Yep. And that's where people really, that's what doesn't change.
Yep.
That's what doesn't change, Wayne. It's like, that's the part where people want to be, they want to know you, like you, trust you. They think they know you. They have no clue who you are. They've never met you, but they feel connected.
100%.
And the whole idea of leveraging what you have. And in today's world, I mean, like, everybody's got a 4K camera in their pocket.
Yeah.
Of
course.
And I have so many agents. As a matter of fact, my man Cruz was just editing one earlier. This gal, Karen, Coldwell Banker, Global Luxury, she is a total ass kicker of an agent, and she's always hesitant. She's like, I don't want to be the one on camera. I don't want to be. And it's like, I'm looking at the one that he shot 2 days ago, and it's like, I knew that she was a total. She's like, I got no problem doing it. It's just, I don't want to be in a, bro. Yeah. It's like, let's dance with who brung you, and like let's leverage what you have. Yeah.
Well, and that's what has changed, right? Because it's interesting. Like nowadays, I'll work with like a dentist or something, and they're totally okay spending $10,000 on some paid ad in a newspaper, but they're not okay with a 30-second video. Right, so it's like what has changed is like that. That's what needs to change, which is why the 22-year-old dentist. I don't know if you can be a dentist by 22, right? But
I'm not going there.
Right, yeah, but it's kicking their butt because he's making the videos and like, look at these teeth, right? Whatever it is. Well, but like you said, it's all branding and marketing, but it's way different now. They were comfortable when it was like the company. They're very uncomfortable. A lot of that when it's with me.
And now. It's going to dovetail right
all right,
back
hit me.
Okay, so just...
Now we'll start the show.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to go back to Eddie Halliday, too. I'm totally dying to get in there.
Don's like, I was on CNN yesterday. I was on CNN yesterday. Today I'm with Rick and Marley in the barbershop. I don't know. I don't know what's happened.
We put a monkey in a football.
Yeah. It's like, is life going up or down? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So it's the power of positive thinking in business. And the quote is from Henry Ford: "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right."
Wow. Yeah.
And so it dovetails right back into what we were talking about. And so many of the folks that I deal with, because it turned out my superpower was to be able to bring somebody into the decompression of getting on camera and give them bite-sized chunks. You don't need to memorize the Gettysburg Address. And I don't know if it's Realtor 101 or if it's just something baked into the psyche whenever they get the license. But you give them a sliver of daylight, and they want to just word cannon you with every feature about 123 Main Street, and it's like, bro, calm down. But once I get them over that threshold, I've never had anybody that found out and figured out they could do it that didn't want to do more.
Interesting.
But it's that whole thing of where they think they can't.
Yeah.
But it's comfortable. It's when they get comfortable, right? Because the uncomfortable is what we shy away from.
Well, and it was exactly what you guys were talking about. They joined the big brokerages because, for example, and I know this is true because I've had it where it's like I will get a call from somebody, like let's say a Dave Perry-Miller or Allie Beth Ullman or whatever, for a listing in Park Cities. And it's like the seller didn't want anybody but that brand. So, I mean, there's that small sliver where that is actually a reality, but by and large, it's not that. It's the agent, so you have a very small sliver of they just want a certain sign in the yard, which, okay, then what? But because even when you get there, that is, now what? Are you just going to do mailers? You're going to do whatever? And so, like, I'm curious for you guys, what do you think of the way, because like right now, I think it's 50%, or it might even be more than 50, are post-COVID licensees as far as realtors go.
Yeah.
That there is this rash of, okay, so I'm immersed in the content world, and there's this really, really weird thing where, Instagrammers are going to Instagram, and they go out and they pretend like a David Weekley model is their listing. And it becomes this thing where I have a lot of older seasoned agents that don't want to be seen as that, and they're mad. And it's like, well, if you got out of camera, 9 months ago when I asked. Yeah. But it's exactly what you said. There are people out there right now that are younger and hungrier, and also just less afraid.
Just doing it.
I don't know if they're it's the younger part that they grew up with thinking this way. They grew up doing stuff. They're holding their camera out and doing that, and they just don't have any problem with it. The hardest people to get are some of the people we were in the room with yesterday. Not saying those people in particular, but that generation or that age where it's not natural for them, and they're still listening to their voice going, I hate my voice, and I can't stand me on camera, and my hair's up in the, it's like, I don't give a crap. It's like, get some content out there.
Yes.
Right? Be there and be present. And I think that, for a lot of these people, they just don't understand that people have to connect to you, and the more that you can be the human, not the realtor, but the human that they like, and you happen to be in real estate. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
Like, that there's a magic in that because I like you first and you're in real estate. I have a real estate need, coincidentally.
Absolutely.
How about that?
Yes.
Let's get together. Let's talk.
Yeah, so true.
And I'm actually doing that right now. So one of my private clients behind the curtain, they're super high producing team, husband and wife team at Coldwell Banker Global Luxury. And so we're working with Glen Eagles Country Club, where I'm positioning them as basically the wife as sort of like the mayor of Glen Eagles. So like last night we were there shooting content for Smokehouse Night, where it was just barbecue and brisket. And the best part is they are, well, I guess they're kind of like my adopted family or whatever, but they're old enough to be my parents. So the idea of getting them in the mood but once they got comfortable, last night I had the husband, and he's as much of a candidate for like, grumpy old man, poster child or whatever, which I love. It reminds me of everybody in my family. But I got him last night. He had a bib and barbecue sauce on his face, standing behind
like
the brisket.
human piece, right?
Yeah,
Like
eating a rib.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what do you? And because at first I couldn't have gotten that with a gun to his head.
Yeah.
But he did it last night. He goes, what do you think? I said, that is going to kill.
Yeah,
Yes.
it will kill.
And then the other thing is, we never mention real estate in any of the stuff we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
They'll figure out
So
who you're with.
interesting.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If the content is good enough, at least that's my philosophy. They'll figure out who you're with, and it's exactly what you said.
You know what else is interesting? As you said, there's that sliver of people that want the sign, the Sotheby's, the whatever it is, Christie's, something because
Yes.
they're in that high end.
Yes.
Park City, downtown Dallas, high end stuff, right? Miami. That's only because we haven't given them a better choice. It's we didn't give them an agent choice. We were so busy giving into the brands, and people all the time tell me, "Well, I wanted to join a brand that was a luxury brand in that sector, in that market,
Yes.
right? I want to join a luxury brand." I'm like, "What makes it a luxury brand? The people that come to it are the ones who make it a luxury brand."
100%.
Right? We didn't know. I mean, Keller Williams was not a luxury brand. Then a luxury division pops up. They get some luxury agents, and they have a luxury brand.
Right.
And that's true of all companies. I mean, Southern California, we had names that you'd never heard of. What's a TELUS? And TELUS became like the biggest damn deal in the whole Southern California. Malibu to San Diego became a really big deal because of who they got that made it a big deal.
Yes.
So it's the agents always that drive it, and companies want the agents to think it's about them, but it's not. It's never been about them.
Always. Correct.
When I'm watching that unfold now, I think Wayne and I are both behind the curtain at EXP.
Yeah.
So I'm watching that unfold with the EXP Luxury Division, And I was there in Orlando whenever they were doing the big, review. And it was like, they were doing all of the promoting or basically just inviting people to come check it out. And then watching that over the last 18 months or whatever actually become a thing. Because before, nobody on earth would have ever associated EXP with a luxury division or anything like that. And then watching that unfold, and then knowing the people here in Dallas that run it, it's like, y'all are, that's legit now.
Yes.
And that's fascinating because it plays into exactly what you said.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with what's on the label.
Yep.
It's all about the people.
Yep.
And it's just crazy to see how something like that can go from 0 to 60.
Yeah.
With just a couple of the pieces
Yes.
in place.
Yeah.
And so now, from a coaching standpoint, do you guys run parallel as far as like, so what is your actual like main, because I know you're doing the mastermind here coming up. And so.
Yeah. So we have a training company, Expert Partners is our training company. And it's kind of an extension from, I came out of Jim Rohn's company, so we're going to talk about positive thinking and all that stuff. I came out of Jim Rohn's company when I was 18. I joined. My running buddy was Tony Robbins. He was 17. We worked there for a long time. So, it comes very naturally to me. It was like my dad figure, and he was the guy that poured into me when I didn't have a family figure that was really that person. My mom was a positive influence. My dad was not. But I didn't have that. I didn't have anybody who was really pouring into me that way. Got out of Jim's company as the president of his company, started HOBBS Herder, which is where we built all the brands and all that stuff. And we built the biggest agents in the whole world. So, and what was the question? Because I've lost my.
It was basically because as I was just looking at your bio and I looked at that. So you also ran Success Magazine.
Oh yeah. So I've had like 60 lives. I'm a cat. So we built the HOBBS Herder. I was there for 4 years, built the biggest training company in real estate. Retired from that, ended up in business with Gary Keller, your old buddy.
Yeah.
And Gary and I had a company together for 4 years. And then when I left there, then a couple of years later, got made the president of Success Magazine, which was so cool because years ago, they had bought all the IP, intellectual property, from Jim Rohn. So here I come full circle back to like, here's all my cool stuff. It's like, and some of it was actually recorded back in my, I know, crazy. They call it classic.
Vintage.
I know when people call me a legend, I'm like, I think I should be dead then. It's like you have to be dead to be a legend.
Pulling out the records. Yeah,
exactly. So anyway, we've had a lot of fun. We do a lot of things. We have masterminds. We bring in key speakers. I've just brought in Bob Berg, the Go Giver. I don't know if anybody knows the Go Giver series, but all of that, endless referrals. We just brought in Larry Kendall, who wrote, I think, the best book in real estate history, not Gary Keller's book, which is just 20 years and dated. Sorry. Not sorry.
We're waiting on version 2.
We've been waiting for version 2 for
about
10 years.
15 years,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, give or take.
Ninja Selling, Larry Kendall.
Amazing,
brilliant
amazing,
book, right? Brilliant book.
Yes.
And so we just brought Larry in a couple times. Wow. We're going to have him later this year. We do live events. We do online events. Like I got a guy this coming week, phenomenal story. 2 weeks. One lung. Should have died twice of cancer, 3 years old, 16 years old, given, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to live. They cut out a lung. He ends up the only man in history to climb Mount Everest with one lung. He then gets excited about that, and he's doing all this for cancer. And he takes people up Kilimanjaro twice a year, big tours, and they pay big bucks for charity.
Wow.
He has what they call the Adventurers Grand Slam, which he's climbed every tallest mountain on 7 continents. He's done the North Pole, the South Pole, and he's done the Hawaiian Ironman. Mm-hmm. And wait, it gets better, because in November he's going to do 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days.
Wow.
His name is Sean Swarner. He's a good friend, and we're putting him out there. What is he going to teach? If you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you can. You get lost in the shuffle. I'm telling you. So we do stuff like that, and then we build big training systems for teams and people.
Where have you seen that show up for you? Like the times when you think you can, you think you can't. Like where is that showing up for you? We're thinking
every time we start a new thing, every entrepreneurial endeavor, it's like, first of all, at this point, it's like, do I have one more in me?
Yeah. I think you got about 10 more, but
can we do this again? It's like starting from scratch. I just was saying the other day, we've started 4 big national coaching companies.
Yeah.
It's like, is this one going to be any good? Can we keep it going? Right now we're doing another one with Success.
Yeah.
We're actually building one with Success right now. So a lot of good stuff. But yeah, I think it shows up. Let's face it, Wayne, the biggest challenge we all have is what's here, between the 6 inches and here, and self-doubt. I remember kind of waking up one day during the Gary Keller time and saying, am I still relevant? Is there anything I'm doing that's still relevant?
I was so curious about that. So clearly you have empirical evidence, you have all the skins on the wall, but do you ever get that sort of imposter syndrome, or did you ever have it because you started so early as far as just getting right out of the gate and kind of having everything kind of line up there?
I never had it then. We created it, and I think there was nobody to copy. There was no imposter syndrome. We were making this road, but we were amazed. It was like I say to people, business is part business sense and smarts and stuff, and then it's part luck, right? Right place, right time. And we were definitely right place, right time. We had the right idea at the right moment, which lit up the world of real estate. I was Gary Keller's first speaker for his first convention, and the reason was because he saw that what we were doing was the answer. He said, you were always right. That was always the way it should have been, right? But I think that as I got older, it's like, can I do that again? Like that was luck and timing and right thing, and can I do that on purpose and do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again? So,
so what's the thought that floods in your mind, and how do you deal with it? Like, what practically do you ask yourself or tell yourself in those moments?
Yeah, thanks.
And by the way, like it's very, I don't know how you feel about it, but it's very reassuring to me.
I got to have a drink.
But to hear someone as successful, you go like, man, I have tough moments. I have days where I don't know, and I'm going, are you kidding me? Like you're the guy. Like you're the guy that's done all the stuff. So it's like it's okay for me to have some moments like that too. When you know what I mean?
Oh
like,
yeah.
Doesn't
That
mean
absolutely gives
there,
you permission.
But it does, because like you've done all the stuff. And I think that's what some people don't think, is like they don't think that other people have those moments, whatever it is. It's like you do, and I don't know if they ever 100% go away. I just think you get really good at dealing with them. So I'd love to know kind of what are some of your tactics?
So I'm reading a book right now. We have a group that we meet every morning and we do a mastermind. And the mastermind turned into a book club, which I always thought was for 90-year-old women. Sorry, not sorry. But anyway, we thought it was not, not like book club. Are you freaking kidding me? So anyway, we've done this. We've done 17 books now since August. People are loving it, killing it with it, just raving about it. Their lives are changing with it. I'm like, it's just a freaking book, but it's a bunch of great books. We're reading John Maxwell's, and he talks about hippopotamus moments and days and eagle moments and days. And, it's like, am I an eagle? But he goes, I have my hippopotamus moments. I'm like, me too.
Yeah.
I mean, totally. It's like, there's days I'm like, oh, please don't let anybody know that I had this day. Like, it's bad for my image.
Right.
So what do? I think a lot of it is I have to go back to, first of all, it's great to have the positive memories. I've done it. It's like the athlete. You get knocked down and you lose. I mean, last night the Mavs took a hard loss,
Yeah.
But they'll get back on it because they know who they are, right? So ultimately it just becomes a blip, and then you go, that's not the truth. That's not the truth of who I am. But I think you have to question, have I done it? What do I know is true? Is it really true? You've coached.
Yeah.
You know is it true? Is this 100% true? Is it really, really true? Is it really, really true?
Yeah.
And I think that it just is self-talk, and it helps when you have a past that proves it.
Yeah.
Sometimes our self-image comes from a place of, I've never won, or at least I've never identified with wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some people have had wins, but they don't identify. They identify with the losses, have had wins, but forget that. And I think for all of us, we need to go back to, part of NLP is referencing, reframing things that are going on through a filter called past wins and anchoring those moments of like, even if I was a high school something, high school, running back, whatever. It's like, have I ever won? Have I ever won? Now, if I haven't, that becomes a different conversation.
Yeah.
Then I got a different conversation for you, and you need to. Yeah,
but I love that you just talked about it goes back to identity, right? Because so for you, it's like even in those bad days, you go like, who am I? And my guess would be in your head, you're someone that gets back up. You're someone who does the next right thing. You're someone who even when I get punched, I like you. Like that's the core identity, right? The wins help support that, but at the end of the day, your identity is not necessarily the stuff you're doing or the win you had today, but you know who you are underneath all that. And my guess is, so what you said, you tap back into that, and that's what keeps you going, which is beautiful.
Right. And Wayne, I'll tell you something else I said yesterday to a group that we were speaking for, and I said, we think sometimes the actions we take are us. We identify with an action. I lost. I'm a loser, right? I did it wrong. I'm a wrongdoer, and we identify the action as who we are instead of the action as something I did, but it's not who I am.
Yeah.
Who I am is, the truth of who I am is greatness. I mean, we were born into greatness.
Yeah.
Whatever you believe about, whatever your God is, I believe God didn't create no junk. And so you started in perfection. You learned limitation. You learned limitation from the people around you, whether it was a teacher, parents, they were doing the best they could. They didn't know. They were limited. And then we learned that stuff. We learned what to fear. We didn't have fears. We're climbing trees. Mom's going, get down before you hurt yourself. Right? We had no clue what to fear, what to think.
Yeah.
We weren't born with that stuff. We were taught that stuff. So we have to remember that it's mostly who we are is amazing. And I always, Jim Rohn had a quote, which I've used for years, which is, you can have more than you've got because you can become more than you are. But the reality is I went further with it. Well, not further. I did my version of it, which was you can have more than you've got when you remember who you are. Because when you start to remember who you are, then all things are possible. It's like, wow. But you have to also work on that. And I think that's where a lot of people haven't done the work. They haven't created the self-identity. They haven't learned. They haven't grown. They haven't studied. They haven't read. They haven't done the things that are necessary. They're in the wrong places around the wrong people, don't have influences in their life that are pumping into them bigger life and bigger thinking and possibilities and all of that, which is, of course, back to Henry Ford, right? Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
And this totally goes in the win column for today.
Hold
and
on.
I'm such a huge fan of the happy accident. So, we're doing the event yesterday, and I just threw it out there like, hey, who wants to come on the show? And it's like, and now I realize I recognize your voice from other podcasts and
the one
other
thing, all the stuff.
Yes, yeah, all the stuff. And because as you're talking, I'm like, wait a minute, boy, that's really familiar. And then a couple of the key phrases, and I'm like, okay, this was a huge get.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to close it with like saying thank you. And
my pleasure.
I mean, we outkicked our coverage today,
Man,
bro.
Amen. This will be the last show. We ended on the top.
Yeah, we're gonna end on a high.
Yeah, no, seriously, thank you.
Thank you.
And here's what's interesting though,
Appreciate
and I want to point out just one thing. I think one of the reasons that we've all had success is because we've said yes in those moments.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we've said yes in those crazy moments. There's so many times you've said yes. You know, when Gary called or whatever it is, right? All the stuff.
Right.
And yesterday you're like, maybe I can make it tomorrow. You know what I mean? You're like, all right, I'm in. I'll hang out with these two. Like it's just so cool. So just encourage people, like, do the yes thing. Like listen to your gut. Trust who you actually are. And like you said, get back in touch with that. Right?
Yeah,
do the work.
I tell my guys,
in touch with who you actually
say yes.
are.
Say yes once, but it sucks. Don't go back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough.
And by the way, on the other side, ask.
Amen.
If you hadn't asked,
boy, howdy. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So ask, and
Okay.
you shall.
I'm gonna mark that
given.
one as a win.
Yeah.
Accidental win. Yes, I'll take it.
We're going to get to ask on the next
Thanks,
podcast.
guys.
By the
Yes.
way.
All right. Thank you, guys. Peter, take us out.
Boom.